Hi and welcome to Read Property List from Bundle. I'm Norman McIntyre and I'll be your instructor. You're going to learn how to create a property list. And in fact, you'll learn what is a property list and then how you create it. Then you'll learn how to use the NS URL to get access to that property list using the NS bundle. In fact, if you've used NS URL and NS bundle to read a text file, you'll see there's some similarities between reading a text file and a property list by using NS URL and NS bundle. We're also going to introduce an NS array. First time we will have seen it, to create an array of items. Turns out we'll read the array of property items into the array. And then we'll give a demo showing actually using these property lists. Then you'll have an exercise where you can practice using property lists as well. So first, what is a property list and how do you create one? Well, a property list is simply a list of either key value pairs or arrays of entries. In fact, I think the best way to understand what one is to create one. So here we're going to create colors.plist. Now colors kind of implies we're going to have a list of colors, and plist stands for property list. So I'm going to say file new, and in this case I want to create a new resource, and the resource I'm going to create is a property list resource. So file new, resource, property list. I then click on next, and this allows me to edit what's called a property list. Here, notice I've selected the colors.plist, and then on the colors.plist, notice that we have the key. So I have a key up at the top, and then the key has a value. So I want you to notice at the very top we have a key called colors, and we see that it is an array. Actually, let me take that back. The key is a root, so this would be the root of our property list, and then we have that as an array. Well, an array has multiple items, and notice for this example I have 3 items. Item 0, item 1, and item 2. Each one of those items is a string and it has a value. So notice I put the value of red and green and blue. So our property list has 3 values sitting there inside our bundle. So our task is to actually get that information from the bundle. We want to get the property list. And we do just like we did when we were reading a text file from the bundle. That is, we first would take the bundle, go to the main bundle, and then ask a URL for resource, and we would get back the URL. Once we had the URL, we'll do something we've not seen before, and that is use NS array with contents of URL. So what this will do is go to that URL, look up the information, in this case the colors.plist, and it will create an array that has the colors.plist. So then we would have, in this case, a variable called colors, which would be a pointer to an NS array. At that point, so that we can see that it works, we do an NS log showing the colors. We also do an NS log showing the colors and the description of each color. Of course, what we might want to do, since we have an array, is to go through that array, and notice we can say for an NS string color in colors. So what's happening here is we'll go through each color, and as it goes through the for loop, each one of the colors will be assigned the variable color, and then we will display that color on the screen as this code runs, and it does a NS log. So here's the results. When we run that, you can see on the output of the screen that we have a red, a green, and a blue, which was displayed as part of running our application. Notice I've printed it out 2 different ways, one going through the for loop and one just displaying the information as the color array. So we have actually 3 different ways of doing it. You see I also have the red, green, and blue at the bottom, which was the last way using the for loop. So this brings us up to the demo of using property list. What we're going to do is edit the property list, and then once we edit the property list, we'll have this thing called colors.plist. Then we'll be able to go to our bundle and use our steps of reading from the bundle, and then we will put that into an NS array, and then using NSLog, we will display the results as they are stored inside the NS array. Hi, and welcome to this demo on using property list. You'll enjoy this one because we're going to see how you can create a property list, how you can put that into your bundle, and how you can read it into an array and actually display the information. So let's switch over to XCode and create a new project. So File, New, Project. For this one, let's do an iOS application, single view application, because we know that it's this type of application that allows us to put things into a bundle. So I'll call this one the Mod 10 demo, and I believe I will call it plist. And the reason I'm going to call it plist standing for property list, and we're going to see how we can read that property list and display the information on the screen. So here I'll have the language is Obbjective-C, universal device, and let's go to Next, and then Create. I'd say the first step is to create the property list. So how do we create a property list? Well, first, we want the property list to be a part of this bundle. So I'm going to click here on this directory that says Mod 10 Demo plist, and I want to create a new file that's going to be a property list. So the way I do that is come up to File, select New, File. So we've done this a number of times as we've gone through the course. File, New File. Once we choose that, I'm going to choose under iOS, I'm going to select Resource. So iOS and Resource. Now we see there's all kinds of different resources we can choose, but I want to draw your attention to this one that's called Property List. So we actually have a property list. So select Property List and click Next. And then we're going to give it a name. We can call it anything we want. I'm going to call it Colors. Okay, so Colors. And it will go ahead and put the extension of plist on the end of this. So I'll just say Colors and hit Create. The idea is that right here, this file called colors.plist, this is going to be our property list of, say, a set of colors or an array of colors. In fact, look over here. This shows you what makes up a property list. It has a key and it has a value. Now, the way a property list is organized, at the very top, you have a key called root. And then the root has a value, and in this case, we see it's a dictionary. In fact, if you click on this, you see you can have two different options for a root. It can either be an array, where you have an array of values, or you can have a dictionary, where you have key value pairs. Let's use an array. So when I come here to the array, at this point, notice there's no items in the array, but since we want to have an array of colors, I'm going to click here on this little plus sign. Notice this little sign, it has a plus. If I click on that, notice it adds an item. It says item 0. So for item 0, we come over here, we see the type is a string, and what I'll put for this string, let me put red. So maybe our first color is red. So in this property list, we have the root is an array, and the first entry in the array says it's a string, has the value of red. Now let me come over here. You notice we've got another plus sign, a plus and a minus. Well, if we touch the plus, it allows us to add another item to here. So what I'm going to do is say, okay, I want to come up here and click on the plus, although it looks like I accidentally deleted it right there. This is something to be careful of. I'm actually glad this happened as I was doing it. Notice how easy it was to actually accidentally delete one of the items you have. From a user interface perspective, they have the delete and the add buttons right beside each other. And notice it didn't ask, was I sure, or anything like that. It just deleted it. So let me go back and put it back in this case. This, of course, was an easy one. I just had the value red that was there. So now I have that, and now I want to come in, and I'm going to click on the plus because I want to add another item here, right? So I come up here and hit plus. And notice for the root, I said add another item, and indeed I've done so. So now I have an item called item 0. And so for this one, maybe I want to set it to green. So now I've got one that's called red, one that's called green. Let me come up here to the root and add one more item. Click on plus, and now notice we've got a red, we've got a green, and I'm going to add a blue. So we have red, green, and blue. So the message you should be picking up about a property list is it has a root. You can decide if the root is an array or a dictionary. If it's an array, you can add as many items as you need to it. Each item can be of a given type, including an additional array or an additional dictionary. Here I'm using the case of just having a string. So we have, in this case, the red, the green, and the blue. Okay, so that's our property list. Now our next step is to be able to read that property list. So let's do this by going to the viewController.m. This viewController is where it says view did load. This is the first code that executes when the view appears. So what we need to do is get access to our property list. We can do that by having an NS URL, pointer to URL equals to 2 square brackets, NS bundle, so NS bundle, give me the main bundle. Once we've got the main bundle, give me the URL for a resource. The name of the resource, well in our case, we've called it this colors, and the extension is plist. Okay, so we say plist. Right, so we've got access to this file, which is of type plist. You may recall from an earlier lesson that this was the exact same technique we did when we wanted to read a file into a string. In both cases, we had to get a URL, and so that's what we're doing here. The URL is giving us, in this case, the colors and the plist. Now, instead of reading a property list into a string, we want to read the property list into an array. So here I'm going to have an NS array. I'll say pointer to colors equals to, give me an NS array. I want an array with the contents of a URL. So isn't that cool? Take this array and fill it up from the contents of the URL. And of course, we give it the URL. So it loads that array from the URL. What you might want to do is an NS log and say, show me all the colors. What this will do is, since it's a dictionary, it will show a description of itself, just like we know these 2 lines of code here do the exact same thing. So here when we say give us the colors or give us the colors with a description, those do the same thing. In fact, if I click on run to run this, when it starts running, we'll see down here in our console output, we'll see that it will show us the array of colors. Look at this: blue, green, red, blue, green, red. So that's exactly like we saw them in the property list. They have been read into the array and we've displayed them. Of course, you might want to use a for loop to enumerate through the array. So we could also say for, and notice we've got 2 options for doing a for loop. Since we have an array, I'm going to do the second option that is called for in. So when I press enter, it says for, we give it the type. Well, in this case, we're going to have an NS string, pointer to S. in the collection, well, the collection is colors. So for NSString pointer to S in colors, we'll come through and say NSLog and show us the value of S. So this will take each item in turn, go through and show us the blue, the green, and the red. Let's go ahead and run it. I'll come up here and click on Stop. Then I'll come here and click on Run. And we'll see we start up and look at this. We've printed out blue, we've printed out green, and we've printed out red. Now you can see by using a property list, there's many times you might want to have some initial data that is part of your application, and putting that data into a property list is a good way to organize the data, because then we can get access to it by the URL and load it directly into either an array or into a dictionary. So certainly a good skill to add to your set of skills related to the Obbjective-C programming. So as always, make sure you can repeat this same demo. Make sure you can write this code and execute it and run it in the simulator just like we did here. For your exercise, you'll also learn how to use the property list. So download the exercise guide on the course page under the Materials tab and then complete the exercise. Thank you for joining us.